Right, here goes.
FUNDA greatness. Engage, inspire, motivate, and empower millions of children every day, supporting you, the adult, to unlock your child's full potential so that they can achieve greatness at home, school, and in life.
Your child can achieve greatness. What is greatness? What is your child's full potential? There's only one way to find out. It's okay to not follow the crowd. It's okay to be different. Who cares what others think? You only have one life. Live it. Do what others refuse to do.
Making a positive difference to children's lives every day.
Hello, Kieran here, the founder of FUNDA, and what a beautiful morning it is today. I'm so excited because I've got a fantastic guest, an absolute friend, a gentleman, a manager, a non-league manager who's really successful. He's played football himself and he's managed a football club for years, and we're going to learn all about that. We're going to try and inspire your children. We're going to listen to Brent, what he's got to say. Brent Peters, the manager of Bacup Borough Football Club, a club that's pretty much situated in the last place God built. It's where I grew up as a child. It's where it's a valley. It's an industrial little valley, cotton mill town, and it's called Rosendale, and it's Bacup Borough FC. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Brent Peters to the show, and I'm going to get underneath his skin. I'm going to question him, and we're going to learn what it takes to be a really motivated, dedicated person, professional. And yes, I'd class him as an entrepreneur because he is a businessman that pretty much manages a successful setup of Bacup Borough FC, an absolute fantastic football club. So Brent's here. Good morning, Brent.
Good morning, Kieran. It's nice to catch up with one of my former players and somebody that's doing really, really well and trying to inspire people, especially young children, in their young lives. It's really refreshing.
Thanks, Brent. Awesome. And we were discussing before this that we pretty much look like brothers with the glasses on and the bald heads.
Exactly, yeah. What is it? The Blues Brothers. Yeah. I'm in white, you're in blue, but we can still call ourselves the Blues Brothers.
Yeah, that's class. So Brent's here, and pretty much Brent's always looking for young, talented footballers. And the reason why I wanted to get Brent on the show is because we used to have lots of children who were progressing through our All-Stars Saturday mornings. And I guess they're now be turning 15, 16, and probably might not have made it at professional level. And just like I was as a young boy and a teenager, looking for that development squad, looking for the still opportunity to become a professional footballer. I know that Brent runs an educational program up at Bacup Borough for young players. And Brent, would you like to discuss the opportunities for young talented footballers at your setup?
Well, I think it's important that the younger they can start, the better. And I'm kind of a firm believer that they should be playing with no fear. You know, they just let them enjoy it. You know, but I don't care. You know, I know the FA have tried to bring in, along the way that they shouldn't be looking at league tables and they can't be competitiveness and all that. I kind of up to probably 7-year-old, I could understand with that. But I think after 7-year-old, it doesn't matter, where they're from, or you'll always have that competitiveness. It's like you can have a young team at Bacup Borough Football Club, say, at 7-year-old, and we could be playing, say, Bacup SC Juniors. That's a different setup to Bacup Borough Football Club. And because some of them lads at Bacup Borough Football Club go to the same school as the Bacup Juniors lads, what will be happening? There'll be banter all week. We got you on, we're playing you on Sunday, we're playing you, and they'll want to win. And so the competitiveness, as Sunday comes around, they play the football. It's they're competing against each other, and the winner takes all. They've got the bragging rights, and they still brag at that age, as you know, Kieran.
Yes, absolutely, Brent. And before we go into all the ins and outs and all the golden nuggets for parents, for kids, because I want to share them. I want to share lots of golden nuggets, tips for parents and that'll come out naturally through our discussion today, because let's put it right, we've pretty much played there, we've been there, you're managing there, and you're at the top there, Brent. We're non-league football club at the top. You have lots of young players playing for yourself. But before we go into all that, it'd be nice to know a bit about your story, Brent, to discuss in a nutshell, summing up your story from a young boy, teenager, and then into adulthood. Where did you start? What's happening?
Well, this is where football came in with me as a young boy, because my late father I was brought up right opposite Rosendale United football ground at Dart Lane up in Newchurch there in Rosendale. And from a young boy, my late father was a director of Rosendale United. And back in them days, what springs to mind is that Rosendale United, they had good FA Cup runs. I ended up becoming a ball boy. That was probably my first introduction into football as a young boy. I was one of the officials. There were two of us who were the ball boys, and a lad called Howard Parker. We were both off the estate, and what used to happen is when Saturday came around, we'd be able to sit at the side of the manager and coaches, and as soon as the ball went out to play, we'd be off like running and going and rescuing the ball and bringing it back. And from those days, back in the days then, you'd see how football clubs were operating at the level, at first team level. You'd learn off the people, and I was only a young boy. And kind of you progress from that. I used to be able to. I always remember the manager, the late, Les Rigby he's an old schoolmaster, and he'd say to us at the end of the game, "Right, lads, stay outside, and when I'm ready for you, you can come in the changing room." So we'd stay outside and we'd listen to what was going on at the walls. You know what it's like. You'd be listening to see what he's saying to the players and giving them a bit of a telling off for this and telling off for that, and then the positives, give him a pat on the back. And then he'd come and he'd say, "Right, lads, you can come in now and start tidying the kit up." So that kind of got us into, picking the kit up off the floor, because you know what players are like, Kieran. They just whiz everything down on the floor. They've no morals like that, have they? So we kind of got involved and started to stack them in neat individual piles, the shirts in one pile, bit of an organisation, the socks and the shorts, and count them in. And that was kind of how I got into things. And then as you go and progress through school, I managed to get in. I wasn't one of the best players at school, but I managed to secure a school place, and I was always, in the house teams, because in them days, there used to be house matches, which were kind of into school games, if you will, with your own school, with classmates.
Yes.
So I progressed into that, and then I kind of I was on trial at the time at Blackburn Rovers, when a certain gentleman called Ken Furphy was the manager whilst we're on trial. And it was whilst they're on trial at Blackburn Rovers that I actually suffered, not at Blackburn Rovers, but I actually suffered playing from a school, would you believe, a bad break. And I fractured my femur, and I did my cruciate ligament at the same time. It was a really bad break. And it was when I was recovering from that kind of my football days before they'd started were really kind of finishing, if you will. Yep. But I was so determined to still be involved in football that I managed to get myself involved with some well-known people, like in kind of Frank Casper, who was a former Burnley football player, but also a former Burnley Football Club manager. I managed to get myself involved with Paul Fletcher, another well-known ex-Burnley football player, and went on to be chief executive. And so consequently, what happened is I kind of got involved, and it was Frank Casper that kind of got me involved in the coaching side of the game. And at Bury, then days, Frank was at Bury Football Club, and what would happen at Bury Football Club, unlike today, because of the financial situation, whatever job you did in the football club, you used to do other tasks. So kind of a famous kind of phrase that Wilf McGuinness, a former Manchester United manager, used to say, because he was the physio at Borough Football Club at the time when I was there. He used to say, I weren't only the physio, I was a cat feeder and locker upper, because he'd had to feed the cats in the around the place and lock the stadium up, be the last out. Well, I was actually working with another former England footballer at the time, was Ray Pointer.
Yep.
And I was working with Ray Pointer. So we'd be, in them days, they used to have the A and the B teams, so in the Lancashire League. So I'd be working with Ray Pointer in the morning with the kids. And if the first team were at home in the afternoon, my job was DJ, club DJ or club announcer, I'll say the PA announcer. That was my job in the afternoon. Yes. And it's kind of, that is where all my career started, really. You know, I learned a lot from the likes of Frank and the likes of Martin Dobson, and I learned a lot from Ray Pointer. And then I progressed in terms of, I probably should have listened to Frank, wise words of Frank at the time a lot better than I did, because Frank, I always remember these words that Frank said to me. Frank always said, Frank, it doesn't matter what you're doing, in what capacity. Once you're involved in a football league club,
yep,
like he said, you need to be staying involved in it, because once you come off the merry-go-round, I will say it for this programme, roundabout, not merry-go-round, roundabout. Once you come off the roundabout, you know, you have a job to get back on that roundabout.
Yes.
So, but I was such a young, ambitious kind of manager that an opportunity arose for me originally at Burnley Bank Hall. I remember Burnley Bank Hall.
Yes. Yeah.
And Frank kind of taught me how to go into Burnley Bank Hall, staying at Borough. So I stayed at Borough. I carried on what I was doing at Borough. And then the following season, I was still determined. I was probably wanting to run before I could walk, if that's one of a good phrase. Yep. And instead of staying where I were and carrying on to learn my trade a lot better, I didn't. I decided to come off that roundabout and decided to take the manager's position at a club called Burnley United in the West Lancashire League.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Now, I did all pre-season with them, but then strange things happen, as you know, in football, and the reserve team manager of Rosendale United had left to take over at Bacup Borough Football Club, a lad called Gary Warburton. As you'll know Gary, I'm sure.
Yes.
And Gary decided that he's got a chance at Bacup Borough, so he decided to come to Bacup Borough, and he brought with him a lot of quite a few of the first team players from Rosendale United to Bacup Borough. But then what happened then is Rosendale United came and headhunted me at the time from Burnley United to come and take the reserve team over at Rosendale, but they kind of really no players. Yeah. The reason why they've got no players is because they've gone with Gary to Bacup.
Yes. Yep.
So I set about the task. There was myself and an ex-Blackburn Rovers player who was also a player at Rosendale United at the time, called Paul Round. So me and Paul Round were like kind of joint managers, if you will. And we set about the task to get players in that were good enough to progress to the first team of Rosendale. And that's what we did. We were quite successful. And after being successful at Rosendale, there was an opportunity came where the first team manager's position became available. And this is where sometimes you have a little bit of a setback. You don't always get what you want. And I remember applying for the first team manager's job, and unfortunately on this occasion I wasn't successful. They wanted to keep me at the club, but they wanted me to be a number two to the manager that were coming in. And I basically said, well, do you know what? I'm not really a number two. I'm a number one, me, and I don't want to be working as a number two.
Yes.
So I think I'm going to have to leave the club.
Yeah, yeah.
So I left the club and I got appointed as the manager, first team manager at Glossop, North End in Derbyshire.
Yes.
And would you believe I took then a lot of the Rosendale United first team lads, a lot of Valley lads like Andy Wharton, who's a former Burnley player, Wayne Howarth, who were my captain, Alan Livesey, Andrew Ornsby, several players of that ilk over who followed me, Russell Proctor, who had all played a big part at Rosendale United. They kind of all followed me to Glossop. And whilst I were at Glossop, we were successful. I led them to the first trophy in, I think it was 16 years. And
Yep.
we won what was then the Lamott Pills. But unfortunately, as what happens in a lot of football clubs, the chairman turned out, I mean, I didn't know what I was going to run into, but the chairman kind of left the club, and the old regime came back. So I saw it out till the end of the season, but I felt that because circumstances had changed, I didn't really want to carry on there. So what I did, as I left Glossop, I ended up then where I went back to Borough for a Borough Football Club for a short time, where I became youth team coach and a kind of chief non-league scout, because at that time, Borough was kind of going, they were having financial difficulties and they were going through a bit of an hard time, and they had to go part-time. Yes. So I kind of were responsible for bringing one or two kind of non-league players in that ended up going and playing for Borough's first team. And then from that situation, I got appointed Rosendale United, would you believe, my hometown club, came back calling again. And basically they just had a relegation, and they asked me if I'd consider going back to Rosendale United, and he kind of pulled at my heartstrings a little bit because it's my hometown club, and I felt that wherever I went in football, whatever I did, I might always regret never managing my hometown club. And it meant a lot to me, having been a lad that's been brought up off the Steggles estate. So, but I also had a good job at Borough at the time, and Mike Walsh was the manager of Borough, and I spoke to Mike Walsh about it, and Mike Walsh basically said, listen, if it's something that you really want to do, all I can say to you is it's your choice, but as long as I remain the manager here, if it doesn't work out, the door is always open for you to come back.
Yes.
So that kind of made my decision, kind of easier.
Yes.
So I decided to take it, and thankfully I built a really, really strong squad together at Rosendale. And after a relegation season, I managed to get them back. We almost got them back into the Evo stick. We missed out, I think it were on kind of 1 point when Atherton Allara actually pipped us. But we did go back to Gig Lane and we won the Challenge Cup. So it were a successful season.
Won a cup, yeah.
Unfortunately, again, I moved on again, not through any fault. I wanted to stay at Rosendale, but as always happens when you're successful, I call them skeletons that come out of the woodwork and want to join in, and they've left before the sinking ship, but now the ship's on the floating on the sea kind of thing. They want to be part of it and want to float along with it. And one thing led to another, that they decided that they wanted to cut my wage bill to spend a bit of money on the structure, and I kind of disagreed with their motives because of what we were building and what I had built in a short space of time. So I kind of left, and that's when I went on to become director of football at Accrington Stanley. And I was there for a short period before I moved on to Doncaster Rovers as assistant manager to a former Chelsea and England striker in Curry Dixon. We're assistant manager at Doncaster Rovers in the old, then when it were, instead of it being like it is now, which is the Premiership, the Championship, the 1 and 2, it was like the 1st, 2nd and 3rd, 4th division. And we were in the old 4th division at the time. So I went there as assistant manager at Doncaster Rovers. And then from Doncaster Rovers, I came back here, came back home into the Rosendale Valley, and I've been at Bacup Borough Football Club ever since. 23 years in September.
23 years. So ball boy, what sums that story up is a ball boy that pretty much worked every job under God's son, PA, changing room cleaner, and worked your way up the leagues, then to finish up at Bacup Boroughs and manage. How many years did you say, Brian? 20?
Brent, 23 in September, it'll be 23 years. 23
years. I'm just writing these things down. So I've got some takeaways to take from Brent's story, which is a fantastic story. And the reason why I ask my guests to tell a story and what I've learned over the past 15 years of running my business is that stories are pretty much what sells. And that's why we watch Disney films still, because Disney films are creative. I still watch Disney films and they all tell a story. So it's a bit more engaging when you have your guests tell a story, because that's why people read books, because the stories. So the reason I picked lots of good stuff up from Brent's stories, and I need to share these. So ball boy at the grassroots level, learning his trade, watching the adults play football, learning the trade, so to speak, the smells. I always remember when I used to go and watch my dad play football, you always remember the smells when you were a young boy, stood at the side of the pitch, whether it's the Afner's pies that are cooking in the clubhouse. You always remember the certain smells. Values and morals is big with Brent in terms of putting the socks in a pile. Every club I've always played for, I've always put my socks in a pile. I've took my top off. Unless I've been sent off, I've always put my top in a neat pile. That's one thing my mum always taught me. Brent, listening to his manager telling people off. And I always remember Brent, when I played for Brent, is that Brent's rants and Brent's telling off. Sometimes we used to finish a game on a Tuesday night, going on 9-10 o'clock, and we didn't leave till going on 1:45 in the morning. I mean, Mrs. used to be waiting outside the change room in a car because I couldn't drive at the time. And she said, "Where the heck have you been?" And I said, "Sorry, Brent was doing his team talk. He's telling off because we probably lost." And I always remember one saying from Brent, and I know this is one of Brent's saying, is that one swallow doesn't make a summer. I remember that, Brent. Do you remember that in the change room? One swallow doesn't make a summer.
Yeah, I still use it today. You know, honestly, as Kieran, I still use that word today. And it was never a true word, by the way, because I'm sure you're going to expand on that now.
Yes, and one swallow doesn't make a summer. So I always remember Brent's telling off there in terms of a team. But the main thing that I took from Brent's, and I've flashed it up on the screen here, is that determination. This is for any young footballer that I've learnt along the way. And I've interviewed now Jay Rodriguez, Mark Pugh, my cousin, and pretty much determination and talent gets you so far. But I've learned that along the way, it's who you know, not what you know. And that's happened for a lot of successful players, my cousin included, worked through the leagues, fair enough. But sometimes it's just having that little lucky break of who you know and saying yes to any opportunity that you might have along the way. Always say yes to opportunities, and that's what Brent's done. So I've got some questions here for you, Brent.
Can I just come in on there, Kieran, before you ask me them questions, just on something you touched on there, which I think is quite important.
Yes.
And you've mentioned Jay Rodriguez and you mentioned Mark Pugh, and I was lucky to have Lee Pugh here, who you know, his brother, right?
Yes.
Let me tell you, the massive. This is massive, because it's all about, if you look at Jay Rodriguez and if you look at Mark Pugh, and I'm using these two guys because obviously they've had good careers in the football league. You follow me? Now, the reason why they've had one of the reasons they've had good careers in the football league is because of their upbringing, the morals of their upbringing, and this is why the parents must play a big part, and their upbringing. And I can expand on that. I look at, there's people who are close to me, which is Reece James, who's now at Doncaster Rovers, and Matty James, who's at Leicester. And they grew up with like Mark Pugh, and kind of they've had the same upbringing, and it's all about, as well as the lads doing well for themselves when they get in the big wide world,
Yeah.
And it all starts with the parents. And this is why it's important that the parents support them with whatever they want to do from a very young age and bring them up the right way. And don't get them over too excited, because in some respects it doesn't always work out like it's worked out for Jay and like it's worked out for kind of Mark. I mean, we can take Leapew on that. His brother kind of was a little bit, but unlucky he didn't have a football career like those two. But that's the way it goes sometimes. But the moral of this little tale is about their upbringing, and the parents have got to play a massive part.
And I absolutely agree, Brent. And also, as well, I've flashed this up on the screen in terms of robots, because I've seen so many parents, especially when I used to coach on a Saturday morning and coach these kids, and I'm watching it today as well, especially social media as well, where parents are trying to, and there were a programme on parenting last night about the UK's best parent. And it's important because a lot of parents will watch this show and they're trying to, the child, whether they want to be a sport player, whether they want to be a footballer, whether they want to be a gifted and talented in whatever, the parents trying to live their life through their child, and pretty much, when I'll use this term loosely, in terms of turning their child into a robot. So kind of like living their life through the children, taking the child from club to club. So, for example, young players, I see boys now and girls at the age of 6 going Manchester City, then they're back to Burnley, and then they're to Everton, and then they're getting a picture on social media, signing a contract at the age of 6 and 7 for the cameras. I think it's absolutely ludicrous, and they're missing out an important part of the child's development, and that's the active start and having fun, or else they won't stick at it.
No, I totally agree with you, Kieran. I totally agree. And the thing is, at a very young age, they're giving these players the kind of think they've made it and they're at stardom. And it's wrong. They think they've got it. And then it's no wonder when they do get released at the end of it, and there's no contracts there at the end of it. You know, you've seen it before, these academies, they're all right to a point, but it's kind of the after schools, I call it, the after effects. Is like, because you could have a kid that's been at these academies from, like, say, 7-year-old, and they've gone all the way through the academy, and they get to, like, 14 and 15, and then there's no contract coming, they're not taking them any further, but they've been there for the biggest part of their young life at that club, and then it's such a culture shock when they get, and that kind of, it can waste a lot of people, because there's also always light at the end of a tunnel. I always say this, after a negative, there's always got to be a positive.
Yes, I agree with that, man.
So where there's been a negative, you've got to look for the positive. And the positive is, if you've been one of the unlucky ones that's got released, and you've been at an academy for so many years, and you haven't got the final, the contract that you want to take you in as a full-time footballer, listen, it ain't the end of the world. I could have a list here that can rhyme off the top of my head. Players that I've been lucky enough to work closely with that have gone on to have a second chance of becoming a professional footballer. Brett Ormrod springs to mind. I worked with Brett Ormrod at Accrington Stanley. Brett Ormrod was cleaning. He was an apprentice at Blackburn Rovers. He was cleaning. Back in the day, they used to have to do medial tasks, and Brett were cleaning Alan Shearer's football boots.
Yes.
But he got released, and then he suffered a broken leg while playing at Accrington Stanley in a non-league friendly against Nelson. But he bounced back from that. He believed. He kept working hard. He worked hard at what he was doing. He still kept believing. And you know what? He got a great move to Southampton. And from Southampton, he's had a terrific career and banged goals in and finished on a high and played in the Premier League with Blackpool. So it's not always the end of the world.
Sums it up, and it breaks me, because I see it, and I see it as a coach, Brent, and player. I'm played as a young boy, and the opportunities I missed out on. And I spoke to my cousin Mark and a while back, and he said they don't know that they're born. Some of these young players who do make it through the ranks and get a yes. Mark, for example, and I'm only saying this because he's my cousin as well, is that he's played in every non-league club all the way up when he got the no at Burnley as a YT. He got rejected, and he had that resilience and parental support then to go from club to club and then playing the Premier League against Manchester United and God knows who else. So I'm with you, Brent, and I think it's resilience and that parental support is absolutely massive, absolutely
Vital.
Vital. So while we're on the topic of the kids and the parents there, because the reason I stopped doing the Saturday mornings is because parents were coming up to us saying, my child hasn't won a medal. They scored 20 goals. They haven't won a medal. They played the best. And the best and the goals mean absolutely nothing. And it's all about that attitude and that resilience that I feel determines a quality player when they can dig deep when it really matters. And I know that's what Brent's about.
You're exactly right, Kieran, and it's not. Listen, it's like even in senior players. Look, somebody can be banging goals in for fun, and 1 minute, but the next minute, they lose form. I look at footballers at every level, and you might think this is a bit strange, but I look at footballers. I think I kind of look at them like a racehorse, right?
Yes. Yep.
They're kind of if you look at racehorses, there's a lot of things going to a kind of a racehorse and a successful racehorse. So, for instance, if you put all your money, and we're not telling people to gamble, but if you was like, because we don't know, but if you backed a certain horse and that certain horse kept winning and kept giving you a return, you back it again. But when you're in close to the stables, the kind of trainers will say, don't back it today, Kieran. Don't back it today, Brent. Why? It's winning. It's in form. No, he said the ground's not fit for it. He said it won't. It'll drop down the pecking order. So there's a lot. What I'm trying to say from this, there's a lot of things you've got to take into consideration. Doesn't mean to say that horse is a bad horse overnight. It just means that the conditions don't suit it. So it's not going to rise to the normal occasion. And sometimes you've heard the saying, horses for courses. So when you get an old manager like me that might turn around back in, you might go, hang on, I'm pulling you out today because I think you're a little bit lightweight and it's kind of heavy out there. It's not going to suit you today. It's not going to suit your style. And that's where you get the terminology, horses for courses. Exactly. Some players look at it. And I think, where these parents are saying about, oh, my lad scored this and my lad scored that. Listen, it's not about just scoring goals. It's the whole part and picture of a player's development. And you know as well as I know that some players can be slow developers.
Yes.
And the slow developer could then easily come later in life and go far and have a better career than the lad that had developed quite quickly.
Yes. Yeah, it pains me. So tips for, you've been a parent yourself, Brent. You're now a parent of the lads up at Bacup, or a manager, because that still is a parent. You've got all these staff. Come on, let's dig a bit deeper. What tips have we got for parents who want their child? And it's not just football. It could be any sport, but let's stick to football at the minute because it's the same long-term athletic development platform we're talking about. What tips have we got for parents?
Well, the biggest tip I'd say with the parents is if you go into a football club, whether it be Bacup, Borough, whether it be Ramsbottom United, whether it be Padiham, whether it be, or if you're in a football league academy, please leave it to the people who are employed, are in positions at that football club to develop and look after your child. Please don't get involved. Parents like to get involved, and the big problem is, especially with them, they're getting them conflicting stories, mindsets, so they don't know. So they can be playing football, and the father can be on the line telling them to do one thing, and it's totally different to what the coach wants them to do within the kind of team shape and how they're playing. It's kind of, and they're going, and they're kind of listening to and then what can sometimes happen is they get back in the car, and then the father can be lambasting them because they ain't listened to him on the pitch. They've got to trust the coaches. If they don't like what the coaches are doing, or they need to find more out, I'm sure, I can only speak for my staff here at Bacup or me, my door is always open to discuss away from the child.
Brent,
Always.
it's awesome. This is, I could talk for 2 hours with you, because what you don't understand here, Brent, is that parents are sat at home scratching their heads and they want the child to be the next Beckham. They want the child to be the next Rooney. But you're on the ground there. You've worked with Nicky Butt, you've worked with Nicky Taylor, you've worked with lots of quality players through the ranks who's been professional, who didn't want to be professional anymore and come back playing for you at David May. You've had Giggs's brother. Liam Coyne has just agreed, and I used to play with Liam Coyne at the back at Charlie, and fantastic player, man mountain, absolute big brute, animal guy, and he used to win every header. And he started his career off playing, and I believe it was Gaelic football, but he was that big and that much of a present. He nearly made it as pro in non-league as well, because he was a class player. But in terms of the message from this for children, is what Brent's just said, is leave it to the experts. I absolutely agree, because show your support as a parent, because that's all I'm going to be doing with my little boy. At the minute, my boy's into bloody superheroes. I just swore. My boy's into, apologise, my boy's into superheroes. He's into PJ Masks. He's into watching a bit of telly. He's into climbing the tree. He's into being himself. And you have to let your child be yourself and discover themselves before building that long-term athletic development. So from a coaching point of view, it is all about that active start, and then the fundamentals, and then learning to train, and then training to compete comes later on. There's far too many kids signing these contracts, Brent, at pro clubs. I've been there, seen it, at the age of 5, 6, some now 4 and 7. These contracts. So what other tips, Brent? So leave it to the experts. What else? Come on, let's
leave it to just kind of leave it to the experts, and I take that all the way through. I mean, even listen, I'll be honest. I've had only isolated incidents with certain parents, because again, it's because we want a player to fit into. We're talking senior level now. We want a player to fit into what we're about and how we're playing, and you know, every role there's roles and responsibilities, and then you get the father, you know, again telling him conflicting situations, and when he's listening to his father and kind of not listening to the coaches or the manager, and then the manager starts saying, you know, like starts getting rattled a bit because he's not doing his recovery runs like he should be doing and getting back into shape, and then kind of the parent thinks, blinking heck, he's onto my lad again. I can't understand why he's onto my lad. Well, just if we wouldn't be on, because there's only one person they should be listening to, and that is kind of the coaches that are coaching them. And the coaches who are coaching them are working closely with the manager, and that's what the manager wants, and that's what gets them in the team.
Relationship. It's like sales. Relationship.
Now, the other thing, you know, tips, and you know, it's all about attitudes. You know, attitudes is massive. You know, I've seen good players, and seriously good players, very, very good players, be released. You know, I could sit here and tell you, name one that just springs to mind now. And when I was down at Borough, he was a terrific. I'll name him. He was a lad called Wayne McKenzie, right? And Wayne McKenzie nobody could kind of handle Wayne, because he you know, he was like a. I have to be careful what I say here, and in terms of his colour. I mean, I don't want to be saying, you know, he was kind of a different culture, right? From a different culture. So he was kind of from a different culture. He'd been released from Huddersfield, and only because he couldn't. But what a terrific player! And you know, kind of, I used to be one of the first in at Gig Lane in the morning, and back in the day, like the young kids were like the apprentices. Were in the visiting changing room, and he was one of the first in, and he'd be there when I walk in, and he'd have a ghetto blaster at his ear, and I'd go in and have a chat with him, and I'd go, how are you today, Wayne, are you all right? And he'd be like talking, not bad, and I'd like gradually, every day I work with him just to like get his mindset and his demeanor right, so he was bubbling, instead of like thinking the world and everybody out there are against him, because he's obviously had a lot of been released at these football clubs, and he's ended up now at Borough. It got to the stage where he was like bubbly, but he couldn't handle kind of. It don't matter if it were you, it don't matter if it were me. If you were a person of authority like the manager, he didn't like him, and I used to say to him, Wayne, why do you not like him? He's all right. He's a good man. Why do you not? No, I don't like him. I don't like him. And I think that was because he was kind of just an authoritative figure, the manager. Yes. Right, and he couldn't handle, and because he couldn't, and I had to try and get into his head the best I could mentally, get into his head to think that whoever scarred him, and I call it scarring, somebody at his previous clubs had scarred him on terms of, and that's why suddenly the poor kid has took an exception to somebody in authority, and that's why his football career didn't really take off ability-wise. It should have done. We've just had it recently where Wayne Rooney has talked about Morrison, what we call the thing who was at Manchester United. He said he's the best player there, but he just didn't have the right attitude, and that's why he's Ravel Morrison is what he called, Yes. So kind of, it's the same principle. You've got to have the right attitude and mental. You've got to be.
I agree. And mindset, I have a saying, me, because it's a tough one. Mindset is what separates the best from the rest. So I picked that up a while ago, that quote, and I've stuck to that because through this COVID-19, and there'll be people who's nothing against them, who's sat in a corner now, who's watching TV, the best TV shows, Netflix, and they've give up. They're on furlough. They're sat at home. They're not developing the mind. They're not reading books. I read 1 book a week, 52 books a year, and that's through audiobook. There's time for reading books, and you've got to develop the mindset, because I struggled at school, and it's important. The reason why I'm telling you this, because children, I believe they have to work on their personal development and mindset, and they call it the 5 hours of learning, that resilience, resourcefulness, reciprocity, that resourcefulness as well, and that reflection, so that they can develop that mindset and the critical skills of learning. But let me just jump back to something here, because my dad was never one of these. And it strings back to leave it to your coaches, leave it to I get that. But I've seen a big element from some players who've made it, that where the parents also rub up the coaches as well and do a bit of bum licking, in the best words I'd say, where they rub the coaches up a little bit and then back off. I still believe that it's not bum licking. That's me stuck in my mindset. It's about building that relationship with the coaches, and not. There's a difference between bum licking, buying the coach a coffee, a Mars bar, and an apple, and building a relationship, Brent. Because my dad used to stand in the corner of a football pitch with all the scouts watching. It's only a short trip down the M60, wherever, to Leeds or wherever. And my dad said, well, if he's good enough, he will make it. If he's good enough, he'll make it. And never said yes to the opportunity. Never spoke to the scouts, never even spoke to the managers to build a relationship. And I believe that got him away of my chances of making a pro as well.
Well, look, let's be straight about this. The coaches at football clubs can make or break your child, for whatever reason. If they're not getting, there's different sorts of scenarios, and what it's like. Football is about opinions. That's what makes the world go around. In terms of, you've got players that have played for one manager, and he doesn't really fit in with that manager. So he gets released. But then another manager comes and takes him because he sees something in that he likes. He takes him on, and he's flourished with that manager. Well, it's the same. It's kind of the same principle. Coaches can make a break, or could make a break a player. But I firmly believe that, I can only relate to myself here. There'll be people out there that's played under me at Bacup Borough, and they'll say nothing but absolute good things about me. But there'll be some people who'll say some bad things about me, because I don't suffer fools, right? But let me tell you one thing, Kieran, and this is absolutely massive in what I have to say here. I treat everybody that plays for me like they're my son. I want everybody. You know what? As much as, and I'm kind of getting, to my older years now. But you know what? It still brings a tear to my eye when I see players on TV. When I'm sat there and I'm watching Match of the Day and these retro programs come on, and I see Carlo Nash pulling absolute blinding saves off, I think, you know what? Carlo Nash got his first contract from me.
Yeah, I remember.
He played for me. He got his first contract, and it brings a tear to my eye because he's got to where I want him to get to. I'm only one part of trying to help his development. There's other players. Colin Little, went on to play for Crewe Alexandra, scored lots and lots and lots of goals at Crewe Alexandra. And now he's I think he's the under-18 coach at Manchester United full time. I think to myself, you know what? I was a part of Colin Little's progression. And it's things like this that I treat every player like that. Look, I'm a manager. We all want to win. I'm not in a development arena at first team level. It's a results game and we want to win. And there's a lot, and obviously development in the development arena is totally different to being in a first team arena. It's kind of a different, it's another progression. But when you get in that first team arena, I treat everybody, and if I keep telling my players, you never know, forget where the team, it doesn't matter if your team who you're playing for and represent are at the bottom of the league, they're at mid-table, or they're flying high at the top of the league. It really doesn't matter. If you go out with your own private mindset, that you're out there in your own private mindset, that you're kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm going to do everything right today. I'm going to go out with the right positive attitude and go out, right? And if every player goes out with that attitude, right, that means collectively as a team, you'll be a decent team, right? Yes. Now, also, equally, if you go out with the attitude one day, I can't be bothered today, I've had a bad day at the, wherever, I've had a bad day at the office, and you kind of go out with the wrong attitude, that day that you go out with the wrong attitude, out there, you don't know who's watching you. It could be the day that there are a Manchester United scout there, and he sees that, and you've not come up front. You've missed the boat.
Yes.
So it's important that every time you take to that football pitch, you have the right mental attitude to perform. You prepare and you perform, and to the best of your ability. And like I say, I treat everybody, and when I start having a go at a player in the realms of a changing room, I'm basically like having a go at my own son, because I'm trying, they're young enough, they shouldn't be playing for Bacup Borough. We're not trying to get them to play for kind of Padiham or Cone. We're trying to develop people to go and play for Blackburn Rovers, Crewe Alexandra, Rochdale Football Club. That's what we're trying to encourage. So, and the only way they're going to do that, they're not going to do that if they come here to kind of think it's a bit of a playtime and play for them. It's not. You've got to have the right mental attitude. And there's
you're developing players, Brent, to be the best they can be as well. I've noticed, rather than just being a football, it goes way beyond football. If they get an injury up at Bacup Borough, because we know that Bacup's the last place God built, there's not many opportunities work-wise as well. But if you are developing people to be the best they can be, that dad figure, that parent, which you are for your team, then after football, they might turn them skills into a job opportunity or other career outside of football as well. It's about being a good person, isn't it?
All the time. I mean, seriously, I mean, we're not here really to talk about kind of me, but let me tell you, there's a lot of, in my time, I mean, I've been in football over 40 years. So, there's a lot of players that that have worked under me and worked alongside me. And let me tell you, some of them you can't always have a changing room full of angels. No. It never, or choir boys. It doesn't happen. But them that aren't angels, that are like skating on what I would class as thin ice, where they could be going under, my door is open. Away from talking football skills, my door is open to talk to them, to talk about life skills, and trying to get them on the straight and narrow to make sure that they've got every chance of progressing and doing well in life, be that a footballer or be that working in industry.
Brilliant. A coach is a parent and a parent is a coach. That's awesome, Brent. Giving back. So what is your future vision then for Bacup Borough? Because I know we've discussed some bits and bobs of ideas and trying to get to see what your vision's all about. What's your future vision?
my future vision for Bacup Borough has never changed since the day I walked in the club. But unfortunately, I'm Brent Peters. I'm on my own. I haven't got a class of 92. So my future vision is, if I had a class of 92 around me, we'd be where Salford City are now. Unfortunately, we haven't. So the future vision is, we keep going, we keep believing, we keep progressing, we try, and success for me is making sure every season that this great football club at Bacup Borough with great history keeps in existence. And that for me is a massive step to make sure that the history is intact, especially when you think the clubs that have kind of passed us by and gone by the wayside that are no longer here.
So take money out of the equation, Brent. We're having a growth mindset and attitude, because you've got a great attitude and growth mindset. Where do you want to be in a year's time? So,
well, where would I like to be in a year's time? I'd like the infrastructure. I'd like the club. I think now where we're going with developing, I'd like to see the facilities kind of the good era, but obviously it needs a wake up call, does Bacup, because obviously it's an old club. It's got a load of tradition. It's got lots going for it. The ground hoppers love it when they come here because it's got a tradition. As long as you don't rip the kind of tradition and the heritage away from it, and we can keep that in. But kind of we need to develop with a surface that will allow us to do what we want to do with the juniors right the way up to the senior football team. You know, in modern day technology, am I a big believer in playing in, you know, my senior team playing every week on a kind of a 4G? I'm not a right believer of that, because of, you know, a lot of players, like you'll know, Kieran, they have bad joints and it doesn't allow for bad joints. But, you know, there's other ways and means that we can do that. There's like the Deso pictures, whereas I think Burnley have got one where it's just fibre and kind of grass. Fibre and grass. But, you know, we are where we are. We're situated where we are. We're one of the third highest grounds in the country. We get affected a lot with the weather, but I'd like to see us progress. So, because one thing is here at Bacup Borough Football Club, and a lot of clubs don't do it, they have youth teams and they have youth setups, and the youth setups are kind of outside the football club, although using the football club's name. I don't agree with that. No. We're all on the inside. We're all together. So my under 10s, there's like, you know, the under 10s, the under 14s, the under 18s, the under 21s, the first team. We're all together and we're all on the inside, and we play in the same stadium. We wear the same kits. We wear the same everything. You know, identification is important. We are Bacup Borough. Proud and privileged to be.
And I know, Brent, from your past as well, is that you invest in young players. So you're looking at starting up now this young. You're always looking for young children, youngsters. You've got the education program starting up. You're looking at developing and bringing players through, as we don't have the budget of the class of 92 or whatever.
Without doubt, it's important. It's our future, and it's important. But sadly, at times we're in a demanding league, and you know, because you've played in it, Kieran. We're in a really tough league, and this is why, you know, it's important while we're developing the youngsters that we have some experience around us, because we can't get through on total youngsters. We'll struggle and struggle and struggle. And sometimes these youngsters, while they're developing, as you know, they need to be looking, you know, for help on the pitch, because different things happen, and that's when they need the leaders and the guiders on the pitch, not us off the pitch, on the pitch. So that's important that we have some experience in with the good lads that we've got, and it's important that we continue our youth structure, and we've got charter standard, and we keep ticking the boxes on the youth side of things, and the infrastructure of the education. We're now moving into the education part of it, and it's all kind of good progression, where in any walk of life, and this is a valuable word, there's always got to be a means to an end.
Yes, no, that's good stuff, Brent, and I think that's been a fantastic podcast show. There's been lots of takeaways there for parents. If anybody's got any questions or comments, I know we've we've had Liam get really involved today. I think Liam's still playing, so you might want to pick him up, Brent. I think he'll be carrying a bit of weight like me.
Give him my telephone number. I don't make illegal approaches. He might be tied up with somebody.
He might be.
But Liam Coyne will be more than welcome here. I'll tell you that now.
He is a good guy. So other than that, Brent, I just want to say thanks. We'll probably talk after COVID, after the lockdown, for some development, some business opportunities, invest in young people of the valley, but also look at it'd be nice to look at a nice weekly budget as well and invest everything back in and get the facilities up to scratch and leave a legacy at Bacup Borough. I know that's what you want, Brent. I know
exactly. I mean, it's funny you should say that, because this morning we had our historian on this morning on our own podcast, and it was interesting. And like I said, if anybody had spoke to me 25, 30 years ago, I were a manager that wanted to get to the top and, tried to be successful, and there's nothing wrong with that, my CV, and I was proud of my CV. But then there comes a time where I'm involved heavily at Bacup Borough Football Club, and unfortunately Bacup Borough Football Club don't have the resources of other clubs, which, when I say resources, is budget. And I've just got what's more important for me now at this football club, whilst I want success, everybody wants success, that's what we strive for, and we've had success here, but we've also had disappointment. Now, all I want here is that to be, ensure that the history of this football club survives, and it's another challenge now because of COVID and what that's brought to us. But as the old song goes back in the 50s, 60s, keep right on to the end of the road. That's it. Yes. That's the one. Keep right on to the end of the road. So we keep right on. We'll keep this good club going, and hopefully we'll develop some good young kids along the way who will have good careers long after we're off this planet.
You'll do it, Brent, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in person after the lockdown. It's been lovely to speak to you. And
my pleasure.
I just want to say thanks so much for spending an hour with us this morning. And I'm literally going to stay on live for a couple of minutes for a question for parents. Leave my last note, and I want to say thanks, Brent, for that. And I'll see you soon.
My pleasure.
Top man. Well, that was a fantastic show there by Brent Peters. Thanks, Brent, for being on the show. And I just want to say thanks to all our parents tuning in who are watching this live back. And I think it's really important. I'm a parent myself. I'm struggling parenting. It's a real challenge. My boys will not listen to me, but I will still support their education, their personal development throughout as long as I blinking live. So if you're a parent out there and you're struggling in lockdown with your mindset, with your child's education, personal development, or just absolutely anything when it comes to your child, I just want to let you know that we have got thousands of resources online for you parents to access for free, anywhere, anytime. Resources. I'm at home today, and I brought all our resources home with me, and pretty much we're going to be filming lots and lots of fun resources there for the parents. So if you need resources, I'll leave the link below this video to get your children active, develop their mindset, their mind to learn, build learning power, basically stuff that they will not learn in school, because we don't need school nowadays. That's just my opinion, because we can ask Siri if we need to ask the times tables. We can say, Siri, what's 2 times 2? And it'll give you the answer. You can Google how to use a mobile phone, how to build an house, how to build a garden wall. So you've got the answers at your fingertips. Let your children be themselves. So what a fantastic show this morning. And I will probably catch up with Brent way off into the future. And I just hope you all have a positive Friday, and a great weekend in the sun. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
FUNDA greatness. Engage, inspire, motivate, and empower millions of children every day, supporting you, the adult, to unlock your child's full potential so that they can achieve greatness at home, school, and in life.
Your child can achieve greatness. What is greatness? What is your child's full potential? There's only one way to find out. It's okay to not follow the crowd. It's okay to be different. Who cares what others think? You only have one life. live it. Do what others refuse to do.
Making a positive difference to children's lives every day.